Hello, you're listening to E-Bible Fellowship's new open form excerpts, and now we present the following excerpt.
Welcome to our question and answer program. Please go ahead with your call.
Yes, hi, good evening. Just a quick question. In today's day of the fact that there's no salvation available, what happens to all the newborns that are being born every single day? Then that's my question.
Yeah, of course. It's a very important question and serious question. And all we can say is that God has a day of judgment, and we have entered into Judgment Day. And in Judgment Day, there is no salvation. There cannot be any salvation during the Day of Judgment. Now, I know some people, it sounds horrific, and it's a grievous thing. It's a very grievous thing. Yet, sometimes, people who would say E-Bible Fellowship is cruel for teaching such a thing. Sometimes, actually more than some, a lot of times, people who say that we're cruel for presenting the biblical end time judgment plan of God, and that's what we're doing. It's what we've learned from the Bible. God has an end time judgment plan where he comes to judge spiritually. He judges by his word. He shuts the door of heaven. He ends his salvation because he cannot carry out judgment until he has saved everyone that he intended to save. And practically everyone understands that. Everyone understands when God comes, you see, in their traditional understanding of his coming, they think he comes in a single day. Let's say he comes right now. As far as their understanding, he comes and the world stops. All the unsaved of the world are before him in judgment, and it's the end of the world. And obviously, they who believe that realize there's no salvation at that time. The salvation would have been completed, or he would not have come to bring all unsaved before him in that scenario. Now, the problem people have is they, I think, fail to grasp the concept of a prolonged judgment day. You see, instead of coming in a single day and conducting an instantaneous judgment and so forth, God's actual plan is to bring judgment over the course of some time, which biblical evidence is pointing to 22 years, 23 inclusive. May 21, 2011, until an as yet unspecified date within the year 2033 is what strong evidence is pointing to. And that whole period of time is Judgment Day. It is God's good privilege to do that, to call a long period of time a day if he wishes. And the proof of that is the fact that he called the time wherein he was saving the day of salvation. Did he save only in a single 24-hour day? Well, no. He saved for many centuries, for thousands of years. And people seem to grasp that concept. They seem to get that idea. But anyway, many would say, now, it's just too hard. It's too cruel to say that God has shut the door and there's no more salvation, and yet time continues for 22 years and children are being born. It's too cruel. It's not fair. It's not just. And again, many of those same people believe in a place of eternal hell. Eternal hell, where, or let's say on that single day that they In their scenario, Christ comes, he throws them all into hell. How long's hell? How long will hell unfold? And who goes to hell? According to the Bible, the young go to hell and the old go to hell, and everyone in between. The only thing is if they're unsaved. In the traditional theological understanding of hell, forever and ever, man is thrown into this fiery place and he suffers forevermore, and people suffer forevermore. And it goes on a lot longer than 22 years. It goes on a lot longer than 10,000 years. It goes on, according to their doctrine, forever and ever, receiving lashes, being whipped, being tormented. And that would be a torture, to be troubled without end eternally. And so I think, when you compare the two, and it's important to compare the two, that here we have a rather kind and gentle unfolding of the judgment plan of God. We're already, this year 2024, we're already 13 years and counting into it, and just a few years remain. And now people have been troubled. Evil has gone forth from nation to nation, and many have been troubled across the face of the earth, which is characteristic of this judgment day period. But still, people are at the beach right now. They're all over the world. There's people at beaches, there's people on vacations, there's people having picnics, there's people that are enjoying their family and their young children. They're playing games with them, I hope, and, spending time with them. And there is enjoyment within the family, with the children. This is the day of the wrath of God the Bible has always spoken of. And it's rather mild, extremely mild, in comparison to what has been taught about the wrath of God in hell, which is false forever and ever, which is false. And yet, I won't deny it's grievous. It's a grievous thing and a sorrowful thing. And all I can say is that, if there's a father or grandfather or mother or grandmother that has, been blessed with young children into their family, to just pray to God, oh Lord, bless my son or bless my grandson with all possible blessings, and the family of the elect who understand these things. Now, none of the wicked will understand these things, but for the elect to understand these things, those children will be precious. Those children will be greatly loved and cared for. And, the parents will have tender spots in their hearts for those children. But as far as God's judgment, if we go to Isaiah 13, and Isaiah 13 tells us about the burden of Babylon, and it ties in with Revelation 18, Babylon is fallen. And we can tell from the language in this chapter, in Isaiah 13, verse 6, howl ye, for the day of Jehovah is at hand. Verse 9, behold, the day of Jehovah cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. Now, I'm reading this so we can see there's no doubt from this language what's in view. It is the coming of Christ to judge, the second coming of the Lord Jesus. It is the final judgment of mankind. But again, God began by speaking of Babylon. And Babylon historically fell at the hands of the Medes and the Persians under King Darius, also known as Cyrus. And the Persians took the kingdom of Babylon in one night. And that's because it's a picture, a historical, parabolic picture of Christ coming like a thief in the night. And you can read Daniel chapter 5 that describes that night. The lords, the king of Babylon, all of his lords were having a party. They were totally unsuspecting that anything like that was going to happen, and yet it was that night. And so that points to the kingdom of Satan caught off guard as Christ comes like a thief in the night. And the king of the Medes and Persians, Cyrus, he's called in Isaiah 44 and 45. In Isaiah 44 and 45, he is called Jehovah's shepherd, and he is called Jehovah's anointed. The Hebrew word, or maybe Aramaic, the word translated as anointed is the word for Messiah. It's the same word from Daniel 9, that foretells the Messiah. The Lord Jesus is coming. And yet the Bible, the God of the Bible, calls Cyrus his Messiah, his anointed one. And so that's why, because the judgment of Babylon, the conquering of Babylon, the slaying of the king of Babylon happened in a night, pictures Christ coming against the kingdom of this world that Babylon represents, and against Satan that the king of Babylon represents. And the king of the Medes and the Persians is a type of Christ, and the army of the Medes and the Persians would be a picture of the army of God, or Christ coming with 10,000s of his saints. And we read here in Isaiah 13, it says in verse 15, everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. The children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eye shall not spare children. And that, we have to look at parabolically. It's a historical parable. It's speaking of the end of the world. It's speaking of Judgment Day, and it's speaking of Christ coming with his armies in heaven, like Revelation 19 describes, and coming to destroy Babylon, having judgment without mercy. No mercy on the fruit of the womb, no sparing of children. And it's, a very hard thing, and again, very sad thing. This is the judgment of God. It's not our judgment. God's in control of the door, and he tells us that. What he opens, no man can shut, and what he shuts, no man can open. And God shut Noah in after 7 days, after 7,000 years from the flood. 4990 BC until 2011 is exactly 7,000 years. And God shut the door of the ark, guaranteeing the safety and security of all those within, the few souls, 8 souls that are called few in the New Testament, the elect. And God, by shutting the door, guaranteed their safety. Everyone he intended to be saved was saved. Now comes the outpouring of his wrath, and it happened on the 17th day of the 2nd month of Noah's 600th year. And yet, if you go that's 7,000 years. One day is 1,000 years to May 21, 2011. It's the 7,000th year. And in the underlying Hebrew, May 21 in the year 2011 was the 17th day of the second month. And you see, that is beyond coincidence. That is the hand of God confirming and assuring that's the day. And that day also happened to be 23 exact years, May 21, 2011, 23 exact years from the beginning of the Great Tribulation, 1988, May 21, 1988. And therefore, it was the end of the Great Tribulation. And immediately after the tribulation, we are told in Matthew 24, 29, the sun is darkened, the moon does not give its light, and the stars fall, matching the language of Isaiah 13, that I read in the earlier verses. And the 70-year Babylonian tribulation, or Israel's tribulation in Babylon that concluded after 70 years, was a historical type of that great tribulation. And that's why immediately after 70 years, Babylon's taken. Babylon falls. The king of Babylon is killed. And Cyrus, or Darius, who is the Lord's anointed, takes the kingdom. And that's our current situation.
Thanks for watching, and be on the lookout for more new open forum excerpts that will be added periodically.